Huddersfield Town! The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is! Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed! Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome back to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Carlos Corberán once again got out his protein pack to exercise a few Peterborough ghosts, but one rather large phantom has escaped as Huddersfield Town still haven't made the FA Cup quarter-final for 50 years. Sadness or gladness to focus on other priorities, you decide, as we discuss the last few games and the latest news out of HD1. Joining myself, Matt Shaw, I've got the Phantom of the Whopper, it's Dan Pozza-Porritt. And the Rolls Royce of the podcast, Andy, the K-Maker K. Are you doing okay, chaps?
Good, thank you, mate.
Yeah, not too bad.
Splendid. A couple of hitches there with the YouTube stream. I'm sure we're on our way now. So, right, guys, let's get going. So, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. If you guys get yourself to magicrockbrewing.com and have a look at the online orders, and you'll get 10% off if you use our code of AHTTC10. Mr. Porritt, there's some feedback I think coming from your end when I speak. So, if you can mute when not on, that would be grand, and then hopefully it'll come through okay on the stream. Right, guys, so good evening to everybody watching online. Apologies that we've had a few techie issues there. Right, guys, so Nottingham Forest 2, Huddersfield Town 1. We'll start there with the FA Cup game. Right, I think I have a very different take to most people, to be honest. And I'll just do a little bit of bits and bats on why that is. So I'm pretty gutted with the result. I still am. The day after, I wanted us to break a 50-year landmark. I'm not really that bothered about playing Liverpool, to be honest. But I wanted this side to progress to the next round. It's 100 years since we lifted the cup, 50 years since we were last in the quarter-final. It just all felt like it was potentially falling into place for our first appearance in that quarter-final for a long, long time. And first and foremost, Nottingham Forest, I thought, played very well. They're a very good side. The pressing was very good in midfield. Jed Spence, Ryan Yates were terrific. They had a perfectly good goal ruled out, etc., etc. But I look at the 6 changes that Carlos made, and I think some of them were probably unnecessary, and that it's contributed to us going out, really, with the start we made. I thought the performance was okay. There was nothing wrong with the performance itself. The in-game subs were fine. But the setup of the 3-4-3 without a recognised forward, I thought was an interesting move. I'm not going to go in too deep on Carlos because he's made some outstanding tactical quirks and changes lately. So, it's not a case of I'm going to sort of turn on him or anything. But I just felt that the way we'd set up for this game with the changes and the way that we sort of tried to go from the first to the final third really sort of put us on the back foot, and it meant that we struggled to knit things together properly. And further to this, there was a tendency on that front three to sit quite deep, especially Holmes on the right hand side, and this sort of meant that Eiting and Hogg didn't really move forward and support the man on the ball effectively either. So Forest's press was doubly effective because of how deep the 2 central midfielders were. And that first half, I thought we caused a lot of our own issues. I thought we improved second half. I thought we played okay second half, but Forest were really resolute. I thought they were good as well at the back. But I don't think there was any lack of effort, especially in that second half. A few players had big off days, in particular Ruffles and Naby Sarr maybe, but I don't really see the need to dig anyone out. It was a fair performance, from all. But for me, the setup at the start, probably wasn't right, and I think it saw us lose this game. A game I really wanted us to win, to be honest, Poz. You can call me a misery if you like. Other people are sort of saying, the league's more important, etc. But I want my cake and I want to eat it. You know what I mean? I want us to do well in the cup and the league. How did you see the game then? I'm a little bit down on it because I do love the FA Cup and I wanted us to go through. How did you see the game? Posh, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah. But it's one of those. I think when you get to the fifth round and you've got a chance of a quarter final, obviously you want to progress. Obviously with the sort of season we're having, you maybe look at it in a little bit of a different light than if we were sort of sat, mid-table and not really pushing for promotion and not really struggling against relegation. I think when you're in the position that we're in, you've got to balance it well. I do agree. I think some of the changes that we made were unnecessary. I don't think Lee Nichols, for example, really needed to be dropped. Obviously, keepers, fatigue and stuff like that, but not as much as your outfield players. And I think playing him would have just maybe showed up that back line a little bit more where the other changes were made. Obviously, sort of Nabisar coming in, Pippa coming in, Ruffles coming in. It does look a little bit disjointed. I don't think the 3-4-3 suits us particularly well. I think it's one of those formations that if you've got the right players, then brilliant. But I think last night we tried to shoehorn players in. As you say, no recognised striker were a little bit strange. And if you're going to play three at the back, to me, you've got to play it as a 3-5-2 and use Pippa as a wing back. And then obviously add a Toffolo in on other side as well as a wing back. And gone with that. Yeah, you can rest players. I agree with what you say. It was one of those, the performance as a whole wasn't too bad. Probably a 7 out of 10 overall, I'd give that performance. And just on the night, unfortunately, we weren't good enough to progress. But then when you look at the other players that we've got available, it starts to creep into your mind that if we'd have played, inverted commas, full strength 11, could we have got something more from game? And I tend to think that maybe we could. But on the other hand, if you play full strength 11 and you come off with 3 or 4 knocks and an injury and a red card or whatever, then people will turn it around and say, well, we're a really good opportunity to rest these players who've played a lot of games in a short space of time recently, and he gets lambasted for that. So I think in Carlos's shoes, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in a situation that we had last night. I think he picked a team that were capable of winning, and the first half we definitely showed that. We were unlucky not to go 2-1 in front, Pippa hits post, and I thought Thomas, he's kind of just got to smash it at goal there, and keeper's made a good save. But on reflection, am I that bothered that we lost? Never like to lose, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, if that makes sense.
I'm sure I'll get over it in a couple of days, Andy. How about you? How did you see the game itself?
I won't get over it. My lad's team, there's 2 Notts Forest fans, not wind up, Notts Forest fans of the dads. So I'm going to get it in the neck tomorrow night, Thursday night and Sunday. So I'm bothered from that perspective. I completely agree with everything you said so far. I thought we didn't deserve to win. That goal that they had chalked off should have been given. The 2 other chances, a bit like in the first time we played them down there, they couldn't finish. They should have. Was it Johnson skied one, or it might have been Spence skied one when he should have scored?
Spence, yeah, Spence did.
Yeah, so that could easily have been a 4-1 and a right. 5-1 in fact, couldn't it? If they'd got the goals given and they scored those 2 chances, that's a 5-1 and that's a hammering. So I think we got away lightly with a 2-1. I don't think it reflected it. We completely didn't deserve to win.
I don't know. I didn't think
some nice stuff from time to time. Nah, they just look stronger, more up for it. They were faster to the ball. We just looked timid at the back. Pippa, the number of short balls he played to people. Nabisar had one of his Sunday League games, not his Champions League game. Yeah, Pearson loved when he got pushed over that hoarding by whoever it was.
Yeah.
That was the highlight of the game for me, when he just disappeared, stood back up again. I went, what? We've made too many changes to have a fluent team for me, and that says where Carlos's priorities lie. So that's fair enough. I genuinely wasn't bothered in the slightest about the result. I thought it was a fair one. You take the L, you move on.
I think the result was fair, but I also think the scoreline was probably fair as well. I know Forest had a couple of chances as well, but we, like Poz mentioned, Pippa's hit the post, Sorba then, really should score with the follow up. It's an almost, he's got half an open goal there, and he's unfortunately just scuffed that. Second half, Danny Ward's, made the keeper make 2 good saves, and Sorba's gone through and put one in the side netting as well after a bit of a sketchy first touch. So I think there are chances both ways. I think it was a case of, when we got in front, we sat back and defended like we did in the league game, but unfortunately. Yeah. Just put pause on mute. Sorry, a second because of the feedback, mate. I think the problem really was that, defensively we weren't solid, and the main issue, the main one change I had a bit of an issue with was Blackman for Nichols, and it's no sort of personal slight really that I'm going to go into. I think the main issue for me was one of communication, and when you look at the second goal, Ruffles is running back in. Ruffles has played them all onside where everybody stood out. Held the line, and Ruffles has run back in. And you just kind of wonder whether Nichols is excellent communication would hold that line. Help them hold that line. There's nothing Blackman could do about the 2 goals. Absolutely, they're both good finishes, but. You just kind of think would we have defended slightly better? And the first goal as well, Naby's come across and maybe gone for it with the wrong leg really. Although he's made a good recovering tackle from the left side, but he's perhaps gone with his stronger foot, which has then caused it to come back into play. And it was a bit lucky really how it fell for them. But I can't really argue with the result. I thought Forest deserved to win the game at the end of the day. I just felt that 1 or 2 changes maybe we've gone a little bit. I've maybe changed a bit too much. I think I think people like John Russell needed a rest. He looked a bit leggy against Peterborough, and Eiting I thought was a smart one. Naby, whether we, like Poz says, whether we went that 3-4-3, I didn't really felt suit us. And to be fair to Carlos, he changed it early-ish. He brought Toffolo on, which I think was the right sub at the time, and Naby went off for Danny Ward again. I think that was the right sub. And we got back into the game a lot more. I think we just came up against a red wall, if you like, and Forest were just really strong and resolute. And I think when you do that, I think it just puts a little bit of extra emphasis on the starting lineup. That you've got to get it right from the off to beat a team like Nottingham Forest. And if you don't, it's going to be very hard to change things on the fly throughout the game. And I think that was my only sort of disappointment. And again, I'm not going to dig Carlos out or the coaching stuff or anything like that. They've been absolutely excellent, outstanding since 2022 started, and it's just a little bit of disappointment from me creeping in because I love landmarks, I love little anomalies like 100 years since we won the FA Cup and things like that, and I just feel a bit disappointed, not let down or anything. I just feel like this was a game which we could have won with the right system and structure, and unfortunately, we've not done it, and I'm a little bit disappointed. But more disappointed than others, I think. Judging by the comments online and whatnot. But there's just a couple of talking points as well. Tell me online, am I being a misery? Tom Bradshaw's talking about Holmes' penalty, but I don't really remember that. I don't. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I don't really agree with those who were willing to throw in a scratch side and lose this game just to focus on the league. I think winning and losing is, a habit and habitual, and I don't really see why there has to be a choice in one or the other, really, either. Usually we pick one or the other and get nothing. That's usually the Huddersfield Town way, isn't it? I wanted both. I wanted to be greedy. Let me know if I've been a misery. There's another couple of things as well. Sinani as a false 9 didn't really work. We've kind of covered that a little bit. And people are digging Pippa out a little bit as well. And, question for those online and you guys is, was Pippa that bad? He's got a 75% pass rate. He's made a lot of good runs in that game, which weren't found. I think when people say he's a really bad defender, I think that's completely over the top. Is this just a case of Ollie Turton being flavour of the month and Town fans going a bit OTT? I don't know. But was he that bad? And one more thing as well, another talking point is, did this feel a bit like a playoff game as well? The atmosphere was really good, wasn't it? There was a sort of, you had that feel, didn't you? Obviously, I couldn't make the game because of work, but it came across on TV. It felt, you could feel that edge. You could feel the jeopardy as well in the air. The Forest fans were up for it. The Town fans were up for it, and it just felt like a good night. It didn't feel like a normal run of the mill game. It sort of had playoff edge to it, I thought, and and that was quite exciting for me as well. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm disappointed. Maybe some PTSD from, Brentford and what have you, from down the years, Peterborough. What you guys jump in on those points. Pippa, was he that bad? I'm not saying he was good or anything. I thought, I thought he was. I don't think he was bad. I thought our problem defensively was on the other flank. Just let us know those. He hasn't
played for 4 games, had he? I think.
In Pippa's defence. In Pippa's defence as well, he's been injured since January of last year with this hip problem he's got, and he's still injured with it now. He's going through rehab. He's struggling with it. He played against Sheffield United a couple of weeks ago, and he had a good game against Sheffield United. But apparently early on he felt it quite early, and he had to play through, and he's having to play through games with this injury. And I think it will be affecting him 100%. But and I think a fully fit Pippa's a really useful weapon to have. And hopefully he gets back to something because he could be really useful going forward. Got Posh, you've unmuted yourself. You look like you've got something to say.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably a little. I think I've seen quite a lot of criticism for Pippa, and I'm with you, Matt. I think a lot of it's probably a little bit unwarranted. As Andy quite rightly points out, he's not really played the right lot. He's coming back from injury. Looking at formation, he's playing right midfield. He's not quite right wing. He's not wing back. He's not right back. So it's a bit of a new position for him as well. If you ask me Pippa's position, I would say he's a wing back. So playing in a 3-5-2, I think suits him. Playing in that 3-4-3, it doesn't really allow him to press forward a lot. It doesn't really allow him to defend a lot. And he was kind of he seemed to be stuck in the middle. He didn't really seem to know.
Are you going to sing the song? Sing the song.
Yeah, stuck in the middle here. Although he just seemed to he didn't kind of know where to go. And I think, just coming back to your earlier point, Matt, about the changes as well, I think if you're playing the same system and changing players, it's a lot easier than changing players and then changing a system as well. So if he comes back and we play his usual system and he plays as a sort of out and out right back, he probably has a bit of a better game because he's less thinking. As a player, maybe not as a keeper because you probably didn't get shifted around that lot, but as an outfield player, if you're used to playing in a position and all of a sudden you have to go play in a different position, half of your mind is on where you are. Am I stood in the right place? Who am I marking? And yeah, they'll have gone through it in training and stuff like that, but how much did the training time did they get to work on this system and stuff? So I think a lot of the criticism aimed at Pippa, potentially because Ollie Turton's done so well. So when someone new comes in and doesn't have a 10 out of 10, it's really easy to go, well, Ollie Turton will have done a little better. But if he'd have played that system and Ollie Turton had played in the same position as Pippa, I dare say that he wouldn't have been half as effective as what he has been recently as well. So sometimes you've got to have a look at the overall bigger picture and, take a step back. And after emotion dies down, it's easy after a match to send a tweet going, so-and-so crap, this, that, and other. But actually, when you take a step back and have time to think of it, he's done all right. He's not made any real shocking howlers. He's attacked quite well. He's defended reasonably well. A lot of their attacks came down the right-hand side. So, obviously they've got Spence and is it Johnson down that side at Forest.
Yeah, class out there.
Excellent players. I mean, if that's Spence, is he on loan from Middlesbrough?
Middlesbrough also have a right wing back just as good.
How good is their right back if they can afford to let him go?
He's really good, really good. They're very lucky, Middlesbrough, with the two they've got. But Bayern Munich are looking at.
Yeah, I don't think anybody came in disgraced themselves. Obviously, I think I said earlier on, a couple of lapses in concentration, individual areas, certainly the second goal. You look back and if that's your usual back four, does it happen? And Nichols is in it, as you quite rightly said. Maybe not, but, these players, they're not getting loads of game time. And, if it takes going out FA Cup to Nottingham Forest for these players to get 90 minutes under the belt in preparation for potentially playing in some really important league games coming up, then for me, it's been a worthwhile exercise. Yeah, you don't want to throw games, you don't want to use them as training exercises, and certainly not when you've got a chance to reach quarterfinals at FA Cup. But, let's just see what happens over the next few weeks, and maybe we revisit this game in 4 weeks, and we look back and say, do you know what, actually, what happened that night wasn't too much of a bad thing.
Yeah. Like Pippa did okay. He wasn't as good as Pippa can be. he just looked a bit tentative. And
he did.
Just the whole of the back 4, 5, however many they were, just looked a lot. They weren't really sure what they were there to do. I think playing that sort of 3 at the back, 3 centre halves, had not done it for a while, had they? So they had got used to each other again. I loved it when he ended up at centre forward at one stage. He broke through the middle, didn't he? And he was like, "Hang on a minute, what are you doing, lad? You're supposed to be right back."
Gets giddy, doesn't
he? Back in the day, yeah. But I think we were trying to push forward then, weren't we, at that stage? But yeah, lad's not played. Tough place to go. The world famous City ground, as they often mention. The crowd. It's
a good away day.
Yeah. Fair dues. Congratulations. Enjoy your hammering off Liverpool in the next round. For that strange derby that they're getting proper excited about. Which
bit of salt there, Andy. Bit of the old salt.
Well, I just don't get it. You know, I can remember it because I'm old enough to remember it, that rivalry. But nobody in the last 30 years can. That's not salt. That's fact. That's the stranger derby as ours is with Peterborough, isn't it? You know?
I vaguely remember them playing each other, but I don't remember it being a rivalry, really. But, you know, they're obviously going to get excited because every fan looks at every fan that was alive to see it obviously looks back at the best times their football club had, and they treat that as the norm. Yeah. They treat that as the norm, don't they? That's just the way that football fans are. We look back, and I don't think town fans are bad for that. I don't think they look back to the 1920s, do they, and go, "Do you know, we should be top of the Premier League. What's going on?" But I think we do.
I do.
But we do look back at sort of the 80s, you know, when Mick Buxton was there and we were in the second division, and Poz is on mute. I don't know if he's talking to us or the wife, but you know, so I don't blame them. Forest fans have not had a lot to shout about, have they, the last 20 odd years? So I think they're quite within the rights to be excited about the Liverpool game. But you know, it could be a bit of a slotting. But you know, you never know. Do you? You just never know. I think that's the wonderful thing about the cup. Yeah, good luck to them. I'd like them to beat Liverpool fully. But yeah, so this game. Shall we see what other people are saying online? I've had to switch browsers because for some reason it wouldn't work with that one. So there we go. Nicely bought time. Right, so Tom Bradshaw, fresh from doing a preview show with Brady. So keep an eye out for that at the end of this week. Tom says, "All right, lads, tight game. Might sound bitter here, but if we'd had a couple more starters in there, we'd have won. I also think if Pippa or Sorba scored that chance, we'd have gone on to win." Yeah, I think there's a thing, isn't there? Sort of, it's such a cliche. Goals change games, and you know, Forest, if they'd have scored first with that goal, which was ridiculously really given offside, you know, it changes the complexion of the game, and they could have sat back and it could have been us attacking. So, you know, we don't really know. You know, Forest fans are sat there going, "Oh, we missed 2 open goals and had a goal chalked off. It should have been 5-1." There's a lot of them saying that, but in reality, if they score first, the game changes completely. So, you know, that's the way it kind of goes, isn't it? Tom also says, second half thought we were the better side. Their only chance came on the counter. And they mentioned a Holmes penalty. I don't really remember the Holmes penalty. I don't know if you guys remember an incident with Holmes in the box. No. Oliver Bell says Holmes did seem to be body checked, sometimes given, sometimes not. Pippa a bit hit and
miss. Remember it now, yeah. I've seen him given.
I saw it. Yeah, I do remember it now. Actually, I was 100% convinced it wasn't a penalty on that one. I just thought, nah. Pippa more effective attacking rather than defending. Love watching him go forward as he has no fear and tries to beat people. But do I trust him defensively? I don't know. Do you know, I think, and Oliver Bell says if Pippa scores, he's the hero. You know, it's one of those things. I think Pippa's defending is completely underrated by some town fans. Not necessarily you, Tom. But, you know, his recovery speed's outstanding. And can you ever really remember Pippa being done one-on-one? You know, that's the other thing with him. His defending one-on-one's actually quite underrated. I think some of his weaknesses are he gets a little bit giddy and he goes too far too often sometimes, and he does leave that flank a little bit exposed. But I think that can be sort of pulled back in, you know, with a good leader alongside him, and you know, and timing the system and whatnot. So that sounds like he's in prison, doesn't he? Timing the system, but timing a structure and a system. But yeah, I do think he's a little bit underrated on in terms of his defensive work by some town fans. Oliver Bell says, as the game got into the last 10 minutes, we just could not get the chances. Forest just won everything at the back, but we stayed in the game. Just a shame we didn't manage to get the equaliser. And then Tom says, best throw-in ever. Yeah, Pippa's throw-in. Cast your mind back to last season. Barnsley scored with a pretty much identical throw-in, and that was given. And, you know, we were told that was a legal throw. I don't think it was, and I don't think Pippa's was either. But you know, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And then Paul Hitchinson says, I think Forest wanted it more last night. They were quality. I hate to say that, but they were good last night. A lot of Town players last night. And then I think it just sort of tails off. But yeah, Forest 100% wanted that game. They made 2 changes to our 6, didn't they? And you know what? I don't always buy into the they wanted it more than us thing that gets banded around. But I actually do think there's an element of truth in that. I do think Forest were really keen to get that result, whereas we made a lot more changes, didn't we, to what we would have normally done on a league game. But let's go and let's discuss league games. There's an important league game going on at the minute at the old Dean Court, now called the Vitality Stadium. It's in the 88th minute, and Bournemouth and Peterborough are 1-1, which is exciting. Sheffield United are 4-1 against Middlesbrough. Luton are winning at Coventry, and Blackburn Millwall's 0-0. Millwall are going to be a tough team next week for us. And Fulham are winning 5-1 at Swansea, which is interesting. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next minute. If you're listening back to this, it's not going to mean anything because you're already going to know it, so we won't go too far with that. Right, so we'll move on to the Peterborough game. So the Peterborough game, you cast your mind back. That was Friday night under the lights. Bit of a blitzkrieg, really, from Huddersfield Town, wasn't it? I thought this could have been a very, very tricky game. Peterborough have got a history of stopping Huddersfield teams in their tracks when going for promotion. You think back to 1992, when we absolutely battered them for 3 halves of football, and then they, got 2 goals, in the second half of the home game to beat us 2-1. I don't think I went to school for about a week after that. I think I cried my little eyes out. 1995, Town were top of the league as well when we were going for promotion under Warnock, and Peterborough came and beat us 2-1. I know we probably said this last week. And then 2011 at Old Trafford. But Town were excellent in the first 20 minutes. They were really, really outstanding. Without sort of the individual flair of, without sort of being, really resoundingly amazing going forward. Town were just so effective. The structure of the team was just so solid, and it just felt like the first 20 minutes Town just went at them, smacked them. Tom Lees, never take that headband off Tom Lees. He can't stop scoring headers since he stuck that on. Tom Lees scores. Daniel Sinani, that's an outstanding finish. Town have had 3 bites at that. Not great defending by Peterborough, but wonderful strike from Sinani. And then Town just geared down completely. And this was sort of part of my little bit of being miffed at the 6 changes, because Town went from 100% full throttle to about 50% for the rest of the game, and just really easily kept Peterborough at arm's length. And I just thought, we were discussing afterwards, and it's probably a little bit unfair on Peterborough, and I will bring this back up if Peterborough do concede in injury time. But Peterborough did look like, to me, one of the worst teams that I'd seen at championship level since probably us at the end of last season. But, they were really poor, really, really poor. But I don't know whether part of that was them being poor or us, just how we managed them so well. And for me, even taking into account of Peterborough, whether you think they're good or bad or you're indifferent towards it, I actually thought this was probably Town's most commanding performance of the season in terms of control, because Town just kept, like I say, just at arm's length, and they just dictated everything. John Russell had probably his worst game. It wasn't a bad game by any stretch, but probably the worst game he's had. But you don't notice that because Town were just so effective and in cruise control, and he was still okay. But don't get me wrong, it's not a dig at him. But Town were just, I thought this was a really pleasing performance, and we went out second half and we won 3-0. It did remind me a lot of a David Wagner style performance, because we used to do this in 16-17, where we would, you think back to Brighton, we beat Brighton 3-1 on Sky and other performances. And I think Bournemouth have drawn against Peterborough. Oh, it's a full-time result. Bournemouth 1, Peterborough 1. That is a very, very surprising result. And Stoke, you'll be pleased to know Stoke have just got a last-minute goal against Barnsley as well, Andy. So that's 1-1 there. So that's a really, really sort of outstanding result. That I think we dropped to third, don't we now, on goal difference? Third, yeah. But that's not bad at all. But let's get back to the point I was making. So the Peterborough game was phenomenally good, I thought. I know people will probably say, people that don't support Huddersfield will probably go, it's only Peterborough. Everyone smacks Peterborough apart from Bournemouth. And I genuinely can't say enough good things about that performance, because it could have been so tricky, Pos. But at the end of the day, Huddersfield just, it was like a policeman arresting some young scrot, wasn't it? Just scurry for the neck, off you go, lads. escorted. Like Danny Adams on Lee Trundle, if you remember that far back.
It were one of those, Matt, like you said, the history between Town and Peterborough, the fact that we've gone X amount of games unbeaten before we played them. You're thinking back to the playoffs, Old Trafford, we were on a great unbeaten run then, and obviously they beat us there, and we're all set up on it to be typical Town, as everyone would say, to have beaten Fulham, and then come play Peterborough not so long afterwards, and succumb to a home defeat, but. The way that we came out of the blocks, it were almost like someone had read the history of Huddersfield Town v Peterborough to the team beforehand, and it's like, look, let's not be that team now. Let's not be that team anymore that puts in really good performances against teams that are up and challenging with us, and then throws it away against the team down at bottom. And after 7 minutes, 2-0 up. I mean, we were dead, wasn't it? After that, we were a dead rubber. We kept them. We plugged on for another 10 or 15 or so minutes, and I think we just kind of realised that, look, Peterborough have got no here, and we ended up just sort of seeing the game out. In some respects, you could look at it and say you're a little bit disappointed that we didn't put them to the sword and get 5 or 6, because if we'd have carried on like we started, we certainly would have done. And that maybe would have made people sit up and take note of how well we are actually playing at the moment. But yeah, it were one of those. It were almost men against boys at some point. I think the Peterborough played in FA Cup just before Man City, I think it was. So obviously that took a lot out of them. Yeah. Big day against Man City, and then coming to Huddersfield after that sort of game with tired legs and all that sort of stuff. So everything probably fell nicely for us on that Friday. But yeah, great goal from Sanani. Tom Lee's header. I think we bar as well in first half, didn't we?
Turton, wasn't it, that hit the bar? I was almost over the upper tier. I jumped so high because I thought that was going in, and it's like the Ginger Cafu was finally going to score. But
yeah, it was just one of those games that it was actually quite nice to be in that position and watch us play without thinking 2-0 up. This could go to 2-2 pretty sharpish, like some games have been. I think, as you say, Peterborough were poor, but we this game management were good. We got through the game without any injuries or all like that, and it was 3 points in the pocket, and thank you very much, on we go. So yeah, very welcome result, very relaxing Friday night for us, which is unheard of really sometimes at time.
It was just comfortable, wasn't it? It just felt, from the 2-0 up, like you said, after 7 minutes, you just feel like, well, that should be game over, and we did a good job on him. I like that up front for Peterborough. I thought he looked a bit of an handful, and I thought second half they caused us 1 or 2 problems. They started pushing at us a little bit, and we didn't look as calm under pressure as maybe as I wanted us to be. We looked a bit hurried from time to time. I didn't think they were ever going to get back into it, but they did have a little go second half, and I thought fair play to them, led by the big lad up front. I'm glad to see we got plenty of minutes, 25 minutes for Tino as well, although he wasn't. He's obviously way short of match fitness, isn't he? But those minutes last night might help him, so that's a good thing. The worry for me is the injury to Lewis O'Brien. That when he went down and then stayed down and then got somebody on, there's something bad going on there if that happens to him. So yeah, I just hope that last night him not playing was a precaution. And that he's going to be all right for Friday, because he runs us, and without him, that could be a season-defining injury if he's out for a while. Because who replaces him? There's nobody can do what Lewis O'Brien does for us. So that's the
saw that last night, didn't we? Yeah. I think we saw that against Forest, didn't we? Because like we mentioned, like Pippa and Dwayne Holmes struggling on the ball, with against Forest and stuff, but a lot of that was due to their press, and they pressed like 2 or 3 Lewis O'Briens, and he's so important, isn't he? Leading our own press and breaking it as well, because he's so good at gliding past players, and hopefully Lewis O'Brien is fit and well for West Brom on Friday. Another Friday game under the lights. A couple of things. Tom Lee's pause. What a performance that was from Tom Lee's. I just thought he was magnificent. There was occasions where Peterborough were playing it long, and he was bringing it out, taking it down on his chest and bringing it out and playing balls into the final third. I made a joke on Twitter, didn't I, that it was like he'd taken that bang to the head and didn't know where he was, and someone had said, "It's you're Ronald Koeman." It's an old Brian Clough joke, isn't it? Told him his prime Ronald Koeman, and he was.
Pele said about
Yeah, that was the joke. Yeah, I stole that joke. Yeah, and he's but he wasn't he? He was outstanding. He won everything in the air, won everything on the ground. I think there's a couple of times. I think their striker Ricky J Jones tried to turn him, and absolutely none of it. He was just outstanding, flawless. I thought, and Pearson was good next to him as well. Turton, inside that, didn't really have masses to do, but what he did well. And Toffolo, the back four looked a really solid unit, and but Tom Lee's really stood out for me.
Outstanding, mate.
He got 9.8, didn't he? In the some, I don't know which, 9.6 in one rating and 9.8 in another. But for a centre half to get that sort of score, he must have been outstanding. And I thought
the goals.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to know what I lost 0.2 for.
What did you do wrong? I don't remember putting a foot wrong at all.
Yeah.
Should have had a bandana rather than the headband.
Yeah, get on the old phone to Effie Sodgy and get Bodowiz.
Against all odds.
Against all odds. Hey, it's one of those seasons, isn't it? You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he were class, wasn't he? And two goals and a goal again last night. 3-2 for a centre half there. It's not a bad goal scoring record. But yeah, I think he's been good all season as Leeds, and I think as the season's gone on, he's grown more confident. He's built up a great partnership with Matty Pearson and Nichols behind that sort of triangle, just in as a triangle in the back five. Absolutely fantastic. They cover each other. He put in an absolutely fantastic tackle in second half as well. I can't remember. I think it was 2-0 at the time. Their guy sort of broke and he threw himself in a slide tackle. And it's one of those that, where I sit just behind goal. You as you can see him, you can see determination on his face, and you're just thinking, please, Tom, you've got to get this right, because if not, it's a penalty. And he slides in and takes man ball and nearly half a crowd with him as well. And it was so good to see that desire and that determination to make that tackle. And I think that the defence are just as proud of keeping a clean sheet these days as they are of getting 3 points. I think I saw on this unbeaten running league, we've kept 7 clean sheets, which is quite a phenomenal feat, really, in this league. You don't see many nils in this league. Everyone being equal, and to get 7 clean sheets in 16 games, I think it is great. I can't remember how many we've got all season, but we must be way into double figures now. Probably teams.
14. I think it's
14 or 15.
I think it's 14. Yeah, it's 14.
That is incredible to say how many dodgy goals we gave away last season and how many goals we were conceding. That's an incredible improvement, and a lot of that is down to someone like Tom Lees, who's experienced at championship level, taking charge and working well with Matty Pearson and whoever else seems, Colwell's being in there with him, Starr's being in there with him, and whoever seems to play with it, must learn so much from him. So, he's one of those that's potentially knocking on door for player of the season, along with a few others for me.
A few others, yeah.
100%.
Did you see his post-match interview where?
Yes, poor Eleanor.
6 clean sheets in 4 games.
That's how good he is, isn't it? That's how good he is.
Love that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was quite funny of her to post that, actually, because she didn't need to do that, did she? But it was good.
She didn't need to do that, did she?
Good to have a laugh. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Do you know? So Tom Lee's outstanding. I'll tell you another. So pause. Just mute yourself. Sorry a sec for the feedback. Another player I thought was outstanding. Not outstanding. I thought played well on the day. And I looked at the Examiner ratings from Town fans the day after, and they had him something like 12th or 11th or 12th in the list. And I was like, what? I thought he had a really good game. And they had him at like a 6.2 or something. And that was Dwayne Holmes. I thought, especially in the first half, Dwayne, popping in from the left into the half, into that half space, really caused havoc with Peterborough. They really didn't know what to do with him or how to track him or which player to go with him. And I thought he was a huge threat, dropping into those spaces. And I thought he knitted things together really well. Some Town are a really sort of peculiar side sometimes because, you've got people like Sorba Thomas, sponsored by AKLD, whipping balls in on a sixpence, from the corner flag, really outstanding delivery. But some of them, Dwayne and Sorba seem to struggle with like a bit, the 5-yard pass under no pressure, give the ball away. And I think that kind of people, it stands out to people sometimes, but I thought Dwayne was really great at knitting things together. He makes really good bursts. He moves into space, moves into good spaces. And I thought he was really key against Peterborough. And I thought he was probably in the top 3 performers. So I was really sort of surprised to see him down in 11th, sort of dwelling at the bottom end. But I thought he played really, really well. And maybe he's one of the, when people go about unsung heroes, and people put like things on Twitter, don't they? Go, who's your unsung hero? And then people always go, Jonathan Hogg. He's like he's the complete opposite of an unsung hero, isn't he? Jonathan Hogg. Everybody sings it, but Dwayne Holmes for me is becoming, like I mentioned the other week, the Swiss Army knife. Dwayne Holmes, he's becoming really key in what he does, and he doesn't play well every week, but what he does is really effective, and especially since he had. Since him and his other half, I don't know if it's his wife, welcomed the little baby into the world, he seems to have really sort of grown with that as well. And I think we've got a player here who's he is exceeding expectations, I think, of what we had when he came back. And I know, Poz, you're probably going to say you had some things to say at the start, but I know you're getting one over as well. And I just think Dwayne deserves a little moment of praise, doesn't he, for some of the performances put in, and for me that was another good one against Peterborough. I'll go to pause because
more than happy to. I think I said last time we were on. I think I said more than happy to hold my hands up and say, look, I got it wrong, and this season he has come on massively. I think sometimes with Holmes, because he's quite small, because he's quite slight, sometimes he can get pushed off at the ball too easy. But he seems to have adapted to that really quickly. Obviously, he's played at this level before, so it wasn't something that should have been too much of a surprise to him. But he seems to have sort of built that out of his game now. He seems to, it sounds really silly, but stay away from actually physically getting involved in those sort of tussles now, which is great. He's chipped in with a couple of goals recently, and I think he's one of them, Holmes. I think he's never just going to be consistently steady as a 7 out of 10. He's going to dip to 5 or 6 one week, but then plays an 8 or 9 out of 10, following week. And sometimes players like that, they can be frustrating more than not good enough, because it's there and it's just getting that consistency out of him. Which lately, as you say, Matt, certainly since he's had that, as a little child, that he seems to be hitting those peaks, which is amazing, really, because normally when you have a kid, you're absolutely knackered all the time. So I don't know what he's eating or what he's going on, but I've got 2 lads, so if you're listening to it, send some my way, mate, because I'm constantly knackered. So. But yeah, I'm more than happy. I'm not one of these fans that has an opinion and sticks with it through, thick and well, no matter what happens. I'm quite happy to, give players credit when they deserve it. If I've, said that they're not good enough, it past all my hands and say we're wrong, and he's definitely one of those for me this season. So. Yeah, fair play to him. I'll take the credit for giving him a kick up arse and saying he's not good enough on this to
That's it.
His improvement.
I think it's your coaching, isn't it, Poz?
Definitely is, mate. Definitely is.
I like his attitude. He's just got you see those Access All Areas videos. He seems to be genuinely happy around the place, and he looks like he's just loving it. And I like the fact that, for me, things might go wrong for him on the pitch, that you can never doubt his effort. He never goes missing, and that's all I would want of a player, to give your heart and soul on the pitch for the club, and that's you'll forgive him the mistakes of the giving the ball away from time to time. At least he's trying to make something happen. He's not the best player the world's ever seen, but he's got loads of what I like to see in a player that represents my club. So. Yeah, more power to him. And his middle name's Octavius. What more do you want?
Spider-Man fans will love that, yeah. Like my little boy. Yeah. Dr. Octavius.
Dr. Octavius,
yeah. Daniel Sinani was a rather odd performance, I thought. Some people will probably say it was really good. Some will be a bit indifferent. The goal, and then the assist for the corner. He put the corner over where... Tom Lees has scored, and then put the corner in for the 3rd goal, which Toffolo heads back as well. So, in terms of output, it's quite high. But he has those lulls, doesn't he, during the game, where he disappears and almost ends up on the side of a milk carton, doesn't he, during the games? And, he's sort of really in and out and frustrating. He's a frustrating player, isn't he, where he plays well once every sort of 4 or 5 games. But he really sort of shone, didn't he, when he had the opportunity to do so here. And I thought, we've not mentioned Sinani for a while on this podcast, and I just thought, he's, Sorba's corner delivery on the other side takes a lot of the plaudits, doesn't it? But Sinani's is almost quite as good on the other flank as well. We've got some really good set piece takers at the club, and again, like I say, it was an oddish performance at some point, but I think part of that was because, like I mentioned earlier, Town did gear down, did sort of take the foot off the gas a little bit. But, I think he's had a bit of a tough run, Andy, hasn't he? And it's good to see him sort of coming out the other side, because I think we've seen comments from a few people suggesting, should we bother in the summer if we've got the option, etc. So it was probably good for him to, pop his head above the parapet with a good performance like that.
He didn't have a great. Was it I can't remember whether it was a Cardiff game, but for the first hour of the game, all he did was give the ball away.
Yeah,
and he got hooked, didn't he? And I think it's that he seems to be a bit of a confidence player to me. He seems like a quiet lad and probably a deep thinker. And you sometimes worry about folk like that who are a bit introverted. But when he popped that way, curled that in top corner on Friday, that was just a lovely piece of skill that I think he's got in the locker. I just think that he might be one of those. They talk about some players need a slap around the back of the head. Some players need an arm around them, and I think he's a lad who needs an arm around him and just a bit of confidence. And I think he'll grow and get better, because he does add to our threat. But playing him up front centre, I know he's played centre forward before, but that was a failed experiment for me. But again, another one that he might have made a lot of mistakes in a few games, but it doesn't disappear. So all power to him. But whether there is better out there, that there probably is better out there. Whether we could afford it, different matter. And I guess a lot of that might depend on the takeover and what happens with where the funds will come from Dino to buy the club back. I'm sure he's going to do a deal with Phil that he won't have to spend a lot of money to take the club back on. But will we get any investment in the future? I've no idea. But
well, if we don't go up, there'll be a certain midfielder who'll be going for a pretty penny. So I'm sure there'll be money coming in that way.
Yeah,
but Pos, Carlos channeling his inner Mike Bassett recently, isn't he? With the a bit of the old 4-4-2. You're a big fan of Mike Bassett, Sam Allardyce, fish and chips, aren't you? The old British Brexit sort of style. Sinani sort of played that sort of what you referred to on Football Manager terms as like a trequartista, didn't he? He played up front with it was Danny Ward, wasn't it? Oh no, was it Rhodes who started? I can't remember. Friday, it seems so long ago, doesn't it? But he did start. It was Ward, wasn't it? He did start up front. Ward, yeah. I had a moment there. He started kind of, but he did drift off. He dropped, left, right, central, and it was really effective as well. Just thought you might want to throw your 10 penneth in on Denel Sinani.
I think it's just steady away, isn't it? Like you say, kind of drifts in and out of games, and I think he's one of those that you've got to get him on ball. You've got to get him on ball a lot. Win the ball back, get it to Sinani, and let him get on with it, because he'll put a foot in. Don't get me wrong. He's not just going to stand there and let players glide past him. But that's not his game, is it? You can tell. He's more finesse than brawls and smashing into tackles. And I think that's why maybe last night playing him up front by himself, it's an hard job, isn't it, playing up front by yourself. And Danny Ward does it so well. Again, someone else who, when he came back, maybe we weren't expecting what we've got out of him, but you've got to be prepared to put the hard yards in and run and close people down and do a lot of dirty work that you don't really ever get any credit for. And for me, that's not Sinani's game. So I think, as Andy mentioned, I won't say we're hung out to dry last night, because that's probably the wrong phrase, but he didn't do him any favours playing him up there in that sort of position. I think his best position is sort of attacking midfield. In that sort of area, and when he gets ball on edge of box, he's proved 2 or 3 times this season that he can score from distance, which is always pleasing to see. And that one on Friday night against Peterborough, old postage stamp in top corner, wasn't it? There were nobody saving that one. So talking about would I save? Would I look to keep him on next year? Again, I think it depends on league position, as you've said, and what funds are available, how much it's going to cost. Weigh it all up, and is there anyone even in academy that can do that job? We'll have to see. But if he leaves, if he don't carry on with us, he won't certainly go down as best player we've ever had, but he certainly won't go down as the worst either. And again, steady 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, which is what you can. If everyone plays that on a regular basis, you probably win more than you lose. So yeah, he's
I think my frustration.
I can't really think of any more words to say. He's just all right, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think my frustration with him is either an 8 or a 4. That's the thing with Sinani is that he goes like 4-4-8, 8-4-4. But
I think that depends on what sort of game it is, though, as well. I think, like,
and where he's playing as well.
Tumble sort of game is not for him, and I think a more sort of, some players are more suited to different types of football. And, if we did get promoted, the way that the Premier League played, it might be better. It might get a little bit more time and stuff like that. But you don't know, do you? That's one for the powers that be at the club to know who they're potentially looking at, and they've seen him all season, they've assessed him. Leave it up to them.
I think it'd be interesting to see if he'd see him after a full pre-season with Carlos as well. There's, like I mentioned, I think pre-season seems quite important with Carlos, and Pippa, for example, has missed 2 pre-seasons now with Huddersfield. One because he signed a little bit late, and the other last year because of injury. So it'd be interesting to see, who sort of benefits, like Sorba Thomas did over the summer. So a lot of things to sort of look forward to maybe on that one. So let's see what the Town fans are saying about the win against the old foe. Let's have a look. So Utini says, very pleased with the defending against Peterborough. Even at 3-0 up, players were throwing bodies in front of the ball when they attacked. John Pearson says, I got to the ground early on Friday and saw Peterborough arrive. Their body language when getting off the coach was really bad. They were beaten before kickoff. And there's a little bit more excitement about the Bournemouth-Peterborough game. Paul Hitchison says, we were so structured on Friday night. The atmosphere was electric and scenes were incredible. The game well Town controlled from start to finish. Then we've got lots of Bournemouth chat here. Bournemouth on a bad run, 2 relegation sides, etc., etc. Has Poz frozen? No, Poz hasn't frozen. He's still there. Leo says Lewis O'Brien's just a bruise, so fingers crossed. And Utini says he's second realistic. Well, the playoffs are, so why not? Marlon Devonish says, hey guys, as well. And Tom Bradshaw says, Lee's class versus Posh, yeah, all around brilliant. Just looked at the rest of Bournemouth's fixtures. They've got a tough run in. They do, and they've got, I think, Reading and Derby are the next 2 games at home. If similar results, and, I might start to sort of look up and think, hang on. So in terms of automatic promotion, somebody did a really good probability diagram of where people are going to finish. And I think Town was sort of 75% likely to finish in the top 6, which was great, but only 6% likely to finish in the top 2. And, that's, and Bournemouth obviously were, I think, 90%. I think Blackburn were 4%, and then that was about it, really. And Blackburn have drawn 0-0 tonight, so that's taken a small hit. Millwall have shithoused them. They've not had a shot on target or off target all game and got a 0-0 draw. An XG of 0, which is fantastic. So
I'm just looking at the league now, Matt, and we're 6 in front of Crystal Palace, if my maths are correct.
Crystal Palace?
Not Crystal Palace, what am I about? Queen's Park Rangers.
Is this like when you predicted Fulham to win the league last year?
I don't know why I said that. We're 6 in front of Queen's Park Rangers. And below that, until you get down to 10th, which is Nottingham Forest, everyone's played 35, and we've played 36. So theoretically, even if they all, I don't know who they're playing, but if Queen's Park Rangers, Middlesbrough, Millwall all win, we're still 3 in front of them. So that little cushion gives you that bit of hope that, we've got West Brom coming up, we've got Bournemouth coming up, we've got Middlesbrough coming up, we've got some tough games. And, people were banging on about, Bournemouth, we've got 4 or 5 games in hand or whatever. Well, that's brilliant. But I think the 2 that they've played, they've got 1 point out of them. So, points on the board for me are more important than games in hand any time. And the closer you get to end of season, the more pressure is on everybody. Teams, you look at league and you think, we're playing, Reading, it should be an easy win, but they're scrapping for their lives. I think Bournemouth play them.
Yeah.
They play Derby. They're 2 of the games in hand, and they're not going to go down without a fight. And look at Peterborough tonight. They've gone there and taken a point. So, just because they've got 3 games in hand, I'm going to say they're going to get 9 points. I do think second maybe a little bit beyond us, if I am being 100% honest, but I think playoffs are definitely on.
Interesting. Good times. Hopefully move ahead. So thanks to everybody watching online. 20 or so are watching at the minute. Like I said in the comments, if you could sort of like it and share it, etc., and subscribe, it really helps. Just put us under more fans' eyes, or more Huddersfield Town fans' eyes, really, when they're searching over YouTube. So, little things help the lads out, as you like to say. Last 2 sort of news items, really, as well. Was a story this week. Dean Hoyle says that he's not going to look for a quick sell of Huddersfield Town Football Club, which links to what you were saying earlier, Andy. He believes that stability is the key moving forward, so it doesn't look like there's going to be any rushed sale of Huddersfield. And the Marcus Evans rumours have gone very, very quiet. It looks like that maybe shelved or put on hold till the end of the season. If I was Dean, I'd be thinking, we'll wait till the end of the season, and the share price might be a bit different, all being well. That's what a smart man will probably do. So, it's good to have that sort of reliability, isn't it? It almost feels a little bit unfair calling Dean back up, really, doesn't it? But he has stepped back into the breach, and I'm not too sure. We'll leave the sort of admin talk that I mentioned earlier in the past where we left it. But it's good to have someone who's a fan of the club, has strong feelings about the club, being able to just sort of say, sort of saying, "Don't worry, lads, I've got this until something decent comes along," and isn't looking to essentially just flog it, flip it, flog it, as quickly as possible. So I think that's only really good for the club, isn't it? I think long term we probably want to know where we're going. So if Dean ever fancies doing a Q&A with us, Pos, we can. I'm sure we can accommodate him and a large audience on YouTube as well, couldn't we? If he ever fancies doing anything like that. So there's relatively good news, I think, for us guys. Do you think? Yep. Nodding, all in approval. Everybody online, all agreed. And then the last thing really is it's £10 for Bournemouth. So they've announced today, the club, that it's going to be £10. The club needs the fans to come down. The club really needs the place banging and buzzing, whatever you want to call it. And Pos, we mentioned against Peterborough. Someone mentioned that the atmosphere was electric, and I think there were points where it was quite quiet, wasn't it? I think I sent you a message, bollocking you, didn't I, saying, "Get singing in there, shit house," or something like that, wasn't it? From my place where everybody sleeps in the upper tier and what have you. But at some point, in the second half, it was really good, wasn't it? The songs were bouncing around, and I sort of stayed, applauded the players off. Went down the long stairs afterwards, and then it's not exactly Newcastle away, but when you've been to the gym, it does just tweak the old legs. But got out, and you guys were still in there singing. You could hear you singing, Naby Sarr song. Naby didn't even play, but he comes to celebrate, doesn't he? Singing Naby Sarr songs. Sorba Thomas and you doing your little bushwhackers dance together, and it was it sounded like it was a lot of fun. I really wanted to sort of walk around and see if I could walk back in, at the top of the south stand to see what was going on. But
it's funny you mention that, because it's become a bit of a thing for the last few games. Obviously the waves come back, which we're all for and everything like that, but they started doing the warm down almost immediately. So obviously if anyone's only played 20 minutes, they kind of just, rather than going in, I don't know if it's a new thing for some unknown reason, but the subs come on and have a little bit of a warm down, and when we're sort of packing up, and people kind of sort of stayed to show their appreciation, which is, as you say, it's fantastic. I think 10-15 minutes afterwards, people were still, I think stewards even came and said, "Right, come on, we need to shut up and lock up where you bugger off home." At one point,
have you not got homes to go?
Ringing a bell,
exactly. Yeah, it were one of those that it were. I think if we hadn't got the early goals, I think the atmosphere would have been tremendous throughout. But once those two early goals went in, as we've mentioned, I think everybody kind of knew, look, we're just kind of going to see this out now. Close to victory, and when it gets like that, sometimes you don't always need that atmosphere. But second half, it picked up, and people just enjoyed it for what it was, which is brilliant. Yeah, but the £10 offer, fantastic. They were looking to sort of move the segregation in South Stand as well to get more people in there, but I think for whatever reason they've not done that. So get your tickets bought. £10. It's a great offer. Get your send down, and as we've said before, go down and back it and enjoy it. Don't turn up expecting it to be, peak Brazil football, because it's not always going to be like that. But
not even with the Ginger Cafu at right back. Are you sure?
Well, you never know. One of those goals that just gets rolled across the rim, like what I can't remember what Brazil back in the day was smashed in.
Carlos Alberto, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. But yeah, get down if you're still a little bit 50-50 on it all at town. Just go down for £10. What else? What else can you do?
Exactly.
Not a lot these days.
Exactly, and bring friends. You know what I mean? Laps, town fans, whatever. A full stadium, people singing, bouncing will work wonders. For us. It's really. I sometimes think it is difficult sometimes to get lapsed fans, if you like, back out of the routines that they're doing and get back down to the stadium, etc. But the football club needs the fans at the minute. The players need the fans. The players are giving everything. So hopefully, more supporters will rock up down there. Same home and away as well. get to as many games as you can, get the boys over the line. It's there's a lot of great town support out there at the minute, which is doing really real wonders. But we need a bit more of it, don't we? We're greedy. I want everything. Moon on a stick. That's what I'm about at the minute. So let's fill. Let's get the stadium full. You know what I mean? Let's get rocking and let's get it back to peak 2018 days or as close to it as we can. And £10, great initiative. Well done to the football club, and hopefully we'll see people down there. Still don't like the away ticket priority. I will add that, so hopefully that comes up at the ATT soon. But it's fantastic. Get the fans in. As fans, come on, get down there. Let's do it, and let's get this team into the top 6 because the other players completely deserve it this season.
100%. Yeah, I think you're getting the hand of Dean in both of those initiatives. The away tickets thing and the £10 ahead. They're absolutely Dean Hoyle classic things for me. Trying to commercialise the product as much as you possibly can. We know how we feel about the away ticket stuff, but I think the incentive to come down and what's a tenner. Like you said, they need it. We want it. How many home games have we got left? Will we have 4 home games left? I think.
5, I think.
4 left.
5-ish, yeah.
Probably cost you more in petrol to get there than it will to get in.
Well, from Barnsley, it will, yeah. Bloody hell, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good incentive with obviously cost of living going up for everybody to give fans an opportunity to have that escapism as well for a couple of hours on a Saturday for a tenner. As what more can you do? For a tenner on a Saturday these days, not a right lot. So yeah, great initiative. Let's hope we get as close to sell out as we possibly can.
Yeah, 100%, guys. I think that's it for this evening. Let's just check any last comments in YouTube. I think Paul Hitchison says it's all sound. Dean's got his mojo back. He's got his mojo working. So as you say, Andy, he's got little things working. So in the club and trying to be in the club's defence as well. The club have got to try and get as much money into the club to be able to compete. We do get that. It's just that sometimes as fans, you can only sort of milk the same cow so many times, can't you? And yeah, I do get it from the club. And £10 is really cheap, to be fair. So I don't begrudge the club trying to make money by any chance. But
is milking the same cow an Udders joke?
Hey, it wasn't, but it can be. It can be now. Yeah. So thanks again to everybody who's watched online. Thanks for all your guys' feedback, etc. And thanks for getting involved. And that is all we have got time for this week. A solid hour. All good, guys. Thank you very much. And let's hear some Chris Carter.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.